old radio spooky cast. The final week of Halloween horrors, and a week in which we're going to back the levels of a few notches down compared to last week's absolutely terrifying ordeal of Matt making me watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time ever. And by the way, a week later, Matt, I haven't forgiven you yet.
That's good. It's still sticking with you.
And I want to clarify because a couple of people were like, well, that's not scary. No, it's not bloody. No, it's not. But it's absolutely fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Toby Hooper did a good job.
It's just like, no, I mean, I'm not a pussy or anything. I know it's not scary, but it's a mental mind fuck, that movie.
Now, we talked about it. We're like, man, whenever you pass by these small towns in Texas, you're like, man, is there one of those families?
Then a couple people were like, oh, you need to watch part 2 now and part 3. I'm like, no, I'm good. I really don't ever.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Part 2 is like nuts in a bad way. Yeah. And then part 3 is just like dumb. It's not that great. I'm
good. I'm okay. I don't need to watch that stuff anymore. And I thought having to watch Hellraiser was bad. I'll watch Hellraiser any day over Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But we survived it. We watched it and we accomplished. And to be fair, and I'm going to knock on friend of the show Winter and your recent mask purchase. I did like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre much more than I liked Halloween. I'm just not a fan. I find Halloween fucking boring and just not that good. That's just my personal opinion. But I did like Texas Chainsaw way better.
There we go. You like the grandfather of all slashers.
And I love John Carpenter and several of his films, but I'm just not a fan of Halloween. This doesn't do it for me. Doesn't get my woody wooded.
You're woody wooded.
I don't know. Trying to add some humor to the darkness. Unfortunately, we're going to stay dark. We're going to do the.
There is some humor in this movie we're talking about today.
Yeah, we're going to knock out the news first because there's not a whole lot. Unfortunately, very slow news weekend, and the 2 bits of news that I do have that aren't news are a bit sad. Man, we lost a couple of actors in recent days. Today we lost Richard Mall. Man, people remember him playing the bailiff on Night Court. The voice of Two-Face in Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, wow.
I always remember him appearing in an episode of the Highlander TV series. Mm-hmm. And he was a bad guy in one of the episodes. And just a big, friendly presence on screen. 6'5", tall guy. Well-liked by his peers. And he was 80 years old. And we lost Richard Mall from Night Court. And we also lost another Richard this week. Richard Roundtree.
Yeah, I saw that, man.
The man that... Can you dig it? Ladies, I mean, this is the man. Shaft is he's like the original. He's like the OG Black Panther on the big screen for young black kids. I mean, and black moviegoers in the 70s, man. That gave them a character that they can watch and they can relate to and enjoy his adventures, man. And he brought that to life on the big screen, and he had a presence about him, and he'll be forever remembered. And they had the Legacy sequel a few years ago with Samuel L. Jackson, where Roundtree back to play his. I think he was his nephew or something in the movie, if I remember right. I did see the remake, I just don't recall it all. But and Samuel L. Jackson left a touching tribute for Roundtree on his social.
I saw that. But man.
But and a couple of great guys we lost this week, and but Roundtree is. And his legacy is incredible. What he brought to black actors and black film and things like that, and it's highly appreciative because he paved the way for a lot more people, and there's a lot to be said about that.
Mm-hmm. Action Jackson, yeah. And
then of course Richard Mall always be remembered for being the goofy bailiff on Night Court that people watched back when sitcoms were a big thing, And I want to talk, and I'm leading back around to Richard Mall because it looks like Lionsgate is officially moving forward with their Highlander reboot and they still plan on starring Henry Cavill and Chad Zielinski from the John Wick films directing.
Badass.
In fact, they are attending the American Film Purchasing Institute this weekend to sell the film to financiers to get the movie financed. And and they hope to start shooting sometime in 2024. Obviously, they're waiting for all the strikes to finish and things like that. But man, I love Highlander, and I'm always real cautious about remakes and reboots, and as we all are with these times. But man, I can't help but be excited about a fucking Highlander movie made by Chaz Zielinski and starring Henry Cavill. I mean,
yeah, dude,
it sounds like it'd be pretty fucking badass.
I mean, if you saw like the sword play action in The Witcher with Cavill, it's like, if we get something like that, I mean, he's so good at it.
But I mean, the director John Wick doing the action. I mean,
yeah, dude, it's going to bring it up like 2 notches, man.
Yeah,
at least.
And they're gonna take the lore of Highlander a little bit, and they're going to take elements of the television show and the movies, and they're going to do it. They're going to back up a little bit and do almost like a prequel, is what Chad was saying, where it's tells the time before the Gathering really began, because they want to be able to build this as a franchise, and build it up to the Gathering. I mean, I think that's a great idea. Couldn't you see an awesome trilogy of Highlander films, and the third film is the Gathering, where Henry Cavill, I'm assuming he's going to play Connor McLeod, will have to be the one at the end, where there can be only one. I think that's a great idea. Instead of just blowing your wad in the first film, build up to the Gathering, you know?
Will they have a Scottish person play a Mexican this time, though?
I mean, they could.
They could.
What if you had an Australian person and you brought in like Hugh Jackman, and he's Australian, and he played?
Oh, dude, that'd be badass.
Person, you know, or
I think you have to do that, because there was that like, wait, he's a Scottish, Spanish,
or
Mexican.
Or you just cast the 2 go-to Mexican guys, Antonio Banderas or Javier Bardem.
Yeah.
Bring one of those guys in.
And then he used a rapier sword at one point, which is like French. And I'm like, this guy's like multicultural.
I mean, he's fucking James Bond, dude. He can do what he wants, you know? I mean,
that's true, man.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. And on another note, Jason Blumhouse has been talking up the Spawn reboot, him and Todd McFarlane. This thing is still happening. They're going to call it the superhero version, the Blumhouse version of a superhero movie, whatever that means.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. I enjoyed the original Spawn for what it is. You know, we did it on the podcast recently, and we admit that it's not great, but there's something cheesily enjoyable about it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's definitely a character that needs a big budget remake with a well done storyline. And so I think it'll be cool to see a Spawn reboot. But yeah, that's all the news I have, really, you know, going on. So very little news this week.
Yeah.
This actor strike needs to end.
Well, you know, I saw something that was news. I saw Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly at a concert, and they performed Boats and Hoes, and then they brought Snoop Dogg on stage to do Boats and Hoes, and I was like, man, are they like touring and going around as well? They had the Prestige Worldwide banner in the background, but it was pretty cool, man. I was like, that's awesome, man. Got Prestige Worldwide up there.
One of my feeds, and I didn't pay it total attention. I guess I should have.
Yeah, man, they did a little performance, and then Snoop came on stage, and I was like, that's freaking awesome, man.
I mean, you know, it's gonna be fly if it's got Snoop on it, you know.
Hell yeah, man.
Man, besides that, man, I watched an interesting movie. I watched Sisu.
Oh man, I've been thinking about watching that.
It's bring your expectations down from the incredibly badass trailer that aired in front of John Wick.
Yeah,
the trailer is freaking awesome. The movie, it's not bad. I mean, it's a quick watch. It's only an hour and a half, but like the action is not quite as intense as the trailer made it out to be.
Okay,
but it's definitely stylized action. Like there's a part where he shoots a guy with a rifle in his chin, and the dude's head pops off or pops open. I'm like, okay, rifle's probably not going to pop that dude's head open, but it looks cool in a movie.
Yeah,
you know,
like great effect.
Yeah, so it's ultra violent. The character of Sisu goes through so much that you're like, there's no fucking way this guy would survive. So it's definitely got that John Wick thing going. It's based on total fiction, even though it takes place during World War II. I had to look it up, and it's all based on, you know, just ideas and stories. There's no legitimate history to it at all.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I mean, I was bored. I was like, I'm going to watch this and give it a look. And like I said, for 90 minutes, you'll be entertained. You'll be highly entertained. It's definitely entertaining. It's just it was one of those movies that the trailer was way better than the actual movie, but you're like,
happens a lot, man.
But it was still cool. But yeah, man, I'd check it out. I'd watch it. I mean, it doesn't cost nothing to watch it. And then I watched, actually haven't finished it. I need to finish. I started watching Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master.
Yeah.
Been years since I've seen that one. And I was like, we've been doing horror movies. I'm thinking about movies we could do next year. And it's definitely, man, I think Freddy's funny in it. It's like his funniest Freddy movie. Like his jokes are just like, he kills a guy in a waterbed and he's like, how's that for a wet dream? I'm just like, oh, that's fucking great. It's like,
friggin' Robert Englund.
Yeah. And, and I was reading, man, it's a lot of people's favorite Freddy movie. A lot of people really like The Dream Master a lot.
Really?
And I can see why. Freddy's kind of got more of an appeal to it with his humor. And I'll finish it this weekend. And I don't know, I was just in the mood to watch it. And,
that's definitely his calling card, the funny kills.
Yeah. I mean, I was just cracking up. He's like, I was up for a wet dream. It is kind of funny, though, because, like, all the Dream Warriors that, had killed him in part 3.
Yeah, Kincaid.
Like, they all get wiped out, like, in the first 30 minutes of this one. Like, all of a sudden, Freddy comes back, and he's just like, fuck y'all, I'm killing all y'all. They completely forgot how to fight him, and Freddy just takes them all out. Just to move the plot forward towards the Dream Master. It's
like Mortal Kombat Annihilation. It's like Shao Kahn shows up, kills Johnny Cage, kills all these main characters.
It's like,
and you're like, what the hell?
Freddy gets woken up by some dog pisses on some gasoline or whatever.
Yeah.
And the ground shakes and Freddy comes out and he's like, I'm back. And he just takes out the Dream Warriors. It's like, it's like, okay, that just happened. But but you got to take your expectations of those films down a little bit, and realize like you're watching a Freddy Krueger movie. You're not going to get
exactly
Oscar caliber plot lines.
It's not Martin Scorsese directs. Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
No, that's it. But that's really about all I watched this week. But I'm on vacation this week, so I'm going to try to get some more things watched this coming week when I'm off.
Nice, man. Yeah, we had talked about the mask that I'd gotten, and I was like, man, I want to see, I knew it was coming in, which was Michael Myers, Halloween Ends mask, the one where it's all like molded and stuff, from the 2022 film. And, I was like, man, you know what? I've never seen the Rob Zombie Halloween films.
Oh, no, I wish you had it.
Yeah, it's not that great.
Even I've seen that. You know what? As much as I don't like the original Halloween, I actually saw that with the ex-wife, and I hated every second of it. Even she said it was bad.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't very good.
It's like they try and they try and extend on Michael's background and try and make it like he came from an abusive, home and stuff like that. And then that's what drove him to, madness and stuff like that. But you've got Danny Trejo in it. So that's pretty cool. And then I watched the second one halfway. I got to finish it, if I get back to it, because that's something I can just, if I finish it, I finish it. If I don't, I don't. No big deal. And then I did watch a new movie that just came out, and that's Five Nights at Freddy's. It was released in theaters, but is also streaming on Peacock. So you can. You can watch Five Nights at Freddy's on Peacock, and it is based off of. There's some lore to Five Nights at Freddy's, and I don't know the lore. My son does, but he really wanted to watch the movie, and it's got Matthew Lillard in it from Scream, Scooby-Doo movies, 13 Ghosts, and it's got the guy who played PETA from the Hunger Games. He's in it as well. And it's a Blumhouse film. It's I thought it was solid. Some people think Willy's Wonderland with Nick Cage is better. I think they're both about the same. Reviews
haven't been too kind to Five Nights at Freddy's.
No. Yeah, I think it's like by solid, I mean, like maybe a C or C minus. That's a horror film. For it to get like high praise, it's got to be pretty damn good. Your Hellraisers, your maybe Psycho's up there. There's definitely some that are better than others. The original Nightmare on Elm Street, stuff like that. But this is not one of your upper echelon horror films. That's for sure. But it was interesting enough, and it's free streaming on Peacock. So if you want to check it out, it's free on there. You don't even have to go to Cinemark to go use money on a ticket. Just watch it from your home.
Let me ask you, what do you think in the age of cinema and horror? Do you think we've seen the best horror movie ever made yet?
I think so.
Like you could take like certain genres like science fiction, drama, comedy, and you could pinpoint one or two that are pretty solid, like or a war movie, like Saving Private Ryan would pop in your head.
Oh,
Action
yeah.
Adventure, Raiders of the Lost Ark would pack in your head. But when it comes to horror, because it's such a still modernly accepted genre, it's hard to there's some good ones, there's some classics, but it feels like the best ever has not even been made yet, if that makes sense.
It depends on, well, I think that there's definitely, I think it's hard to say that there's going to be better that comes out for me.
You can only do so much with the genre, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of movies that just use a bunch of jump scares. Or they just try and be really, really bloody and violent. And you lose the element of satisfaction,
And I was thinking
whenever
about
you do that.
I was thinking about if I had to pick three, I don't think I would even pick three that I think are the best. I think I would look at it as the way they defined the genres at the time. You made me think about it. It would be Psycho. It would be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then maybe Scream, because they each define horrors for their eras.
Yeah.
And that is not to say there's not other good films in there, but you almost have to look at horror films as what defined each era of horror. Because horror in the 60s and the 80s and then even the 90s is all so different from each other.
Big time.
The 80s was a little campy, a little silly, but yet Texas Chainsaw paved that way, and maybe to an extent Halloween. The Alfred Hitchcock stuff in the 60s and 70s was very psychological, not so much bloody and gory. And then in the 90s, it's kind of self-depreciating humor with and then you still have the dark stuff like Hostel and the torture porn, but Scream kind of modernized it to say, hey, horror can be fun too,
Yes. Yeah, you can add that satire element to horror in a creative way. And it brought horror films back into the spotlight because it made so much money,
Now we're jumping 30 years later into the Blumhouse era, and they're doing stuff that is different and appealing to mass audiences and people. And they're doing horror films of all different kinds. They're doing the jump scare stuff. Is the Nun them, or is that A24?
I thought, remember. But that was A24.
Yeah, I think it is A24, but that's another company. Between Blumhouse and A24, they're doing movies that are jump scares, but they're also doing classic horror like The Invisible Man, and they're doing sci-fi horror. Like they got the Spawn reboot's going to be kind of sci-fi horror. So you have even things have changed even now,
Yeah, and then there's movies that it's like it's not jump scare or or maybe it's story as well, but you have these some of these legacy sequels. Like I saw, Evil Dead Rise, and I thought it was pretty good. Like the tone and the atmosphere that they set, and I was like, man, it's been a while since I've seen a horror movie use that. You don't see it a lot, so it's cool to see that nowadays because I feel like that's what like 70s horror was.
Right. But I also think the best horror sometimes for me as a viewer is like I can enjoy a Freddy Krueger movie and kind of laugh at it, have fun, and I enjoy a Scream movie. But like Texas Chainsaw or even The Fly, because you think about The Fly when it came out in 1986, which was just a couple weeks ago, and science was moving very quickly in the 80s. And you think, man, like, what if that happened? Because now we know that it's feasibly probably not possible. But in the 1980s, man, that played on people's fears.
Oh yeah,
of modern science, and that's what makes it horrifying in a different way than being jump scares or Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers slashing someone up.
kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's like, oh man, what if we're being taken over?
Exactly. And I didn't mean to get a little tangent there.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Well, it wasn't really a tangent because I kind of planned to have that discussion near this show.
Yeah,
probably a good point right there to get that discussion in. But anything else you watched this week?
That was really it. Yeah.
You watched Barbie. You have to admit to this.
Oh, I did. I did watch Barbie. I almost forgot.
I know. I'm going to call you out on it because I watched it and took my daughter and I gave an honest opinion of it. So,
yeah.
I'll call you out. It's okay. Our man cards can be tested and say we watched it.
I did watch it. There are funny elements to it. I get why some people were bashing it, but I think you just took the movie too seriously if you're bashing it. Because it's a movie that shouldn't really be taken serious. It's a comedy, it's got a lot of comedic aspects to it. Reminds me somewhat of Lego Movie, but it's not, verbatim Lego Movie. There is like a Lego world and a human world, where you do have a president business played by Will Ferrell. And then he's like basically president business here.
But I rewatched it with Waverly this past week and the kids. And I think it's funnier the second time I watched it because there's a lot of jokes that I didn't pick up on the first time.
I like whenever he's like discovering like patriarchy and he's like, oh yeah, that's what we need. And so he's like dressing like friggin' Sylvester Stallone from Rocky mixed with a cowboy.
Gosling is great in the movie.
Yeah.
He's Oscar worthy great, I think. They could get a nomination.
I like Gosling, man. He does good comedy.
Really good. He has a lot of fun with it. You can tell he's just having a blast.
Yeah, man. And then Margot's good. Ugly Betty's in it. John Cena makes a cameo as a friggin' mermaid. And then there's, like I told you, an unusual amount of Matchbox 20 in the movie. And but I'm just like, yeah, and the damn song got stuck in my head that Ryan Gosling sings because it's like it used to play all the time in the 90s. It's I Want to Push You Around. And I was like, oh man, it's bringing me back to like listening to 104 KRBE in the 90s. But yeah, it's got some good humor in it. It's got an interesting story. The different Barbies are funny. And I think it's I don't know. I probably wouldn't have paid the rental fee that it is right now, but whenever if it dropped to like the $10 rental or the $5 rental, I would have watched it.
Overall,
yeah.
I can see why it was a phenomenon, why it's successful. It played to mass audiences.
Yeah, definitely.
And it genuinely is a good film. And that's why I hate people when they make comments. Oh, it just looks stupid. I'm not going to see it. Like, how do you know it looks stupid? You haven't seen the movie. It's like,
yeah.
Judge for yourself.
Judge for yourself, man. Watch it. Check it out. It's still
watch Margot for 2 hours.
You do get to see Margot. That is true.
Yeah, people think I watched Wolf of Wall Street for Leonardo DiCaprio. Fuck no.
Nah, dude. I watched it for friggin' Margot Robbie.
That's right. Yeah. Let's have a moment. We're just having a moment here for Margot Robbie, people.
A moment for Margot Robbie.
That's right. She's really good in the movie too. Ryan's good, but she's also really good. Actually, everyone. I think the entire cast. I think that's what sells Barbie. Is the entire cast believes in what they're doing. They all give good performances, and they sell the audience the movie, and you're thoroughly entertained for 2 hours.
Michael Cera is still Michael Cera, though.
Right. But that's what a movie should do. It should sell itself to its audience and entertain you for a couple hours.
Mm-hmm. And the toy lore is cool, even though I didn't play, obviously didn't play with those.
Oh, yeah.
But,
sure. Yeah. Play with your sister's Barbie.
But it was cool to see the toy lore, that they used actual toys and releases and brought that back in there, and then showing some of them at the end. And I was like, oh, cool, toys.
Yeah.
Mattel. Yeah.
It's a fun movie. All right. Well, let's get into our final movie for the month of October for Halloween horrors as we close things out this week with Tim Burton's take on the legend of Sleepy Hollow in his film Sleepy Hollow. And Matt, I'm going to let you summarize this one.
Yeah. So in the name of science, Icabod Crane, the constable out of, I'm not sure what town he's based off of, but the great Christopher Lee sends him to investigate a slew of beheadings that have happened in the small town of Sleepy Hollow, a Dutch town of Sleepy Hollow. He has a past that is touched upon where his mother was, accused of witchcraft, and he found her dead, which, is a driving factor in his relationship with Katrina, whom he meets, the daughter of Baltus Van Tessel, leader of the town. And there he discovers that, this Headless Horseman is real. He applies some scientific techniques, but he has to reach out to that other side, that witchcraft side, where he, discovers, the witchcraft that is used to bind the Hessian, the Headless Horseman, played by Christopher Walken. And he's attacked by the horsemen. He witnesses other attacks by the horsemen. He's, going through the slew of murders and bodies that the Headless Horseman is leaving in his wake. And, eventually comes to a head where he finds that Van Tessel's wife, newly wed wife, who actually we find forced her way into the home, made his first wife sick, and then married to try and get all of his property because her last name is Archer, and the Van Tessels, were the ones that basically ruined her family life and shooed her out of the, town and took the land and stuff like that. So Van Tessels, basically screwed her and her family over. And this was all a big plot to control the Hessian, get the land back from the Van Tessels through the marriage bed. And Icabod has to help save the day with the help of Katrina. And they're able to put the Headless Horseman to rest. And he takes the crazy wife down into the depths of hell, and Sleepy Hollow is safe after this. Overzealous and horrible use of demonic forces to gain land back. Great use of Christopher Walken, though. It's like someone had this great idea. They're like, we're going to get Christopher Walken in here, but we're not going to make him say a damn thing. He's just going to growl the whole time.
Okay, first off, I must say, last week I said, I forgot how bloody this movie was. I know last week on the show, I'm like, oh, this one's probably the least gory we've done. I was wrong about that. I forgot
the friggin' tree.
It's been a while since I've seen this. Second, Christopher Walken wanted to be in the movie so bad to work with Tim Burton. He didn't even tell Tim Burton he didn't know how to ride a horse until the first day of shooting. And they're like, what do you mean you don't know how to ride a horse? And Christopher Walken's like, oh, I don't know how to ride a horse. I read it. And so he had to learn on the spot. He had to learn how to ride a horse. Then he found out that he wasn't going to have any lines, and he's like, oh, okay. He didn't really know. He's like, whatever. And then did he probably double found out where you're not going to see your head most of the film. But it worked. Johnny Depp, the character of Icabod in real life, was apparently not very attractive. And of course, Johnny Depp's considered one of the most attractive actors to ever grace the screen. He offered to wear prosthetics, and Tim Burton wasn't having it. He's like, no, that's not what the studio's paying you for.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. You're just going to be your face. And it's like, we're not making a history movie here. We're just telling a tale,
Exactly.
So my initial thoughts on this movie, because I hadn't seen it in a while, is the first hour is a little dull. It's a little slow. I feel like there's about 30 minutes of this movie could have been cut off. It could have told a tighter story in about an hour and 35, hour and 40 minutes.
Probably, yeah.
The second hour is great. Like it's classic Tim Burton filmmaking. Like it's really, really good. Like some of the best Tim Burton stuff, the last hour. But I can appreciate the first hour for what it sets up. I just feel like there's some exposition and stuff that can be cut back a little bit. Poor Casper Van Dien. He did Starship Troopers, and then he gets chopped in half in this movie, and has never really had much of a career after that.
Yeah.
Some great choreography in this movie as far as the fights and stuff go, I think.
Yeah, man.
For a gothic horror film. Some great set designs. And the crazy stuff is, what's cool about this movie is it's majority is practical effects. There's obviously some CGI in it, but they built these sets, they built these houses, they built these trees, and the actors and everyone was absolutely amazed what it was like walking onto this set. They said, man, this feels like a Tim Burton film came to life. I think they built more sets for this movie than they even did for his Batman film that he did.
Oh, damn.
Because Batman, they used New York City and they used matte paintings and things like that. They actually built these sets. So some pretty neat stuff about that. It's such a stylized, cool looking film too. I mean,
it is.
It's gothic. It's dark.
They drew inspiration from like the Crucible and Hammer horror films, and you can see it. You can definitely see it in the film. And it was much different than what it was originally going to be conceived as. They wanted it to be like a slasher, almost like a slasher film, and I don't think it would have turned out the same. No. This movie definitely has a very unique style about it, bringing all that into one, plus Burton and some comedic aspects.
Well, and the comedic aspects are what make the film keep from being depressing or too dark, I think.
Yes.
The humor grounds it into a bit of a reality that makes the viewer enjoy the viewing a little bit more. Because I think without the comedy in this, and the comedy is done so well and it's so just spry here and there, that it's funny and it doesn't take you out of the darkness of the film.
Yeah. Icabod being so coy whenever he is, inspecting the lopped off area of the head, and a bug crawls out, and then he's trying to help Casper Van Dien, Brom. He's trying to help him, fight the horseman. You can tell he really doesn't want to get close in there, so he's like, trying to just dandily get in there, and then whenever he's got to like hack away at the roots of the bleeding tree, he's like, oof, right. Who's making that nasty, disgusted face. And he's supposed to be this almost like a doctor. I know he's not like a doctor, but he's got forensic stuff. Right. And he works with chemicals and stuff like this all the time. So it's funny that's bothering him throughout the film. And then, they don't touch a whole lot on his mother's story. But you get the gist of it. And it's definitely something that's got to scar the guy. And you can definitely get a feel for, where he's come from. And, of course, I think Christina Ricci's mother was also accused of witchcraft, I think, but she's like a good witch. And that's, that's touched upon, of course.
It's funny because Depp was weirded out at first whenever he got cast in the film. He found out that Christina Ricci was cast also and was going to play his lover. And he told Tim, he goes, man, it's like, I've played like, she was like his daughter or something in a film?
Yeah.
If I remember right. And he's like, this is kind of weird. And Tim's like, no, it's okay. And then Depp had a real hard time, like separating the two. It's like, she's old enough now. And I'm thinking if I'm Johnny Depp, I'm like, man, go ahead and go get in there, man. Christina's pretty hot now,
Yeah.
She matured quite well.
Oh, man. Christina Ricci, man. She's Wednesday.
Even in the Wednesday TV show, she still looks good for her age. I mean, she's fantastic.
And then it was funny. They had Black Snake Moan on sale have
you ever seen it? It's not good.
It's not, but I told Jackie, I was like, she gets like naked and stuff in it. And I was like, she shows a lot. And she looked it up and she was like, whoa, she does. And I was like,
the movie's not good though.
No. And I said it's got that meme. It's what made the meme of Samuel L. Jackson whenever he's like, old and got the gray hair and he's like looking all crazy. I was like, it had a meme made out of it. But yeah, Christina, man, she was a lot of guys, posters on the wall. That's for sure. And she looks great in the film. She's good as the daughter, the good witch, and at one point, you almost believe it could be her, that she's the one that's controlling the horseman. And I like that. We've talked about some of these films where you don't know who the killer is at the end, and you have like no idea who the killer is, and there's no way you could have known. This one, it's like all the suspects are there, but you're legitimately having a hard time figuring out who the, bad guy is. Is it Baltus? Is it one of the, is it the Reverend? Is it the daughter? You don't know. So, very cool. Very cool aspect of the film, the whodunit part.
Yeah. And, we forgot to mention too, the fucking Emperor's in this movie, dude. Ian McDermott.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he is.
He's in this film. I mean, so you have him and Christopher Lee. You have two Star Wars actors in this movie. Yeah.
Man. And and the great Christopher Lee. I love hearing his voice when he says Icabod Crane in that deep Christopher Lee voice that only he can do. And I'm like, man, it's so.
I hear them for him, 1999, because he had this, and Lord of the Rings came out later that year, The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
So,
he was busy.
Yep.
Sauron.
Late career renaissance for him there, And Depp, man, this is Depp back when he was at the prime of his career, man. Just, hits after hits. He was a box office success. And he, you got to remember Depp too, man. He could take any kind of role back then. He could do a Sleepy Hollow. He could do a romantic comedy. He could do a horror movie like The Ninth Gate or whatever.
Yeah.
And he had success with it because he was at that point in his career where he was comfortable doing all kinds of films. And I like this Depp at that point in his career. I mean, he was just doing good movies and was entertaining people, one of the top actors in the world. And now he's, it's unfortunate that he's taken a turn in the media with everything that happened with Amber Heard and all that, because I truly think he is one of our good movie stars, and he's a good actor. And hopefully he can get a career renaissance going again. I mean, maybe they'll do this next Pirates movie finally and bring him back as Jack Sparrow or something.
That would be nice.
He's a good actor, man. And, and he's a good presence on the screen.
I think the social media consensus is that we'd like to see him back on the screen.
Yeah.
Especially people that sympathize with him over Amber Heard taking a shit, in his bed,
Right. Maybe him and Tim can get together for another project after Tim finishes with the Beetlejuice sequel that no one asked for.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I have no interest in seeing Beetlejuice 2. I just don't.
Same here.
I like Tim Burton, but I'm just like, I'm not a huge fan of the first Beetlejuice. I like Michael Keaton in it, as we talked about. We did the podcast.
Yeah.
Keaton's great, but overall the movie, it's okay. It's, it's not one of the, it's not, to me, it's not even a top 5 Burton film for me personally.
Yeah. You don't want to get nuts.
No.
Sounds like you don't want to get nuts.
So I got no desire to see the sequel. Even though I did hear that Winona Ryder showed up on set in the best shape she's been in her life. People say she looks amazing for her age.
Wow.
Because it feels like Stranger Things is taking so long. It feels like we haven't seen Winona on screen in a bit. With the gaps in between seasons and stuff. So
this is true.
Because I think it's still filming. Because I think Beetlejuice is one of those movies that chose to continue filming despite the strike. Because there are a few movies that did that. That the actors agreed to go ahead and work in some stuff. So, and there are a few movies that are still being filmed. And that, man, you know what? That's one thing I didn't put in the news. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 2 delayed almost a year.
Oh,
July
yeah.
2025.
That's nuts, man.
Yeah. It sucks because of the strike.
Strike's pushing a lot of stuff back.
Screen Rant's throwing a story out there saying that they're not calling it Dead Reckoning Part 2. I haven't read that anywhere except for Screen Rant, so I don't believe that. Why would you not call it Dead Reckoning Part 2 when you market the first one as Dead Reckoning Part 1?
Exactly.
That doesn't even make sense. That really sucks. It's delayed almost a year to find out.
It's like, when would we get a Part 2?
The next big bad news that's going to come is any day now. I'm expecting Sony to announce a year delay for Beyond the Spider-Verse, and that's just really going to piss me off. But I didn't mean to, you just reminded me talking about legacy sequels and But yeah, Sleepy Hollow, man. This is just a really good. It's a good gothic horror film. It's very entertaining, wonderful set pieces, wonderful fight sequences. Actually, when he gets his head back at the end, pretty damn good CGI for even 1999. But at this point, we had Terminator and Jurassic Park, and the CGI was nothing new. Some cool stuff there. Good performances throughout the movie, and just a good watch, man. It's streaming on HBO Max if you haven't seen it as well. But Sleepy Hollow is based on a book, right? If I remember correctly, from Irving Washington, and
Scott Irving. Yeah,
Scott Irving. It's got some mythology behind it, huh, Matt?
Yeah, so there's a lot of there's some Czech ghost stories that Scott brought with him, and then he was also inspired by seeing one of the battles in the American Revolution where a man's head was taken off by cannon fire, and so he put some of that lore together and came up with one of America's first ghost stories. And the story goes is there's a Hessian. Which they believe Scott to have encountered at some point. And there was an Icabod Crane who enlisted in the Marines for about 45 years in 1806. And so Scott came up with this
he was in the
supernatural.
45 years?
Yeah.
45 years.
45 years. Yeah.
That's insane.
Which is crazy.
Back then, that's a long time.
Yeah. A military career of that length. Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty impressive.
That's a long time now. It's really a long time for the 1800s.
Yeah, he did it for basically his whole life. So this is based off of a spiritual entity that lost his head and seeks out the living for revenge and won't rest until he just takes everyone in this village. Takes their heads, and he can't rest until he finds his own, and that's the whole trope that he's always out there. He's been used in video games. He's been used in all kinds of cartoons.
Disney made that Icabod Crane movie.
Yeah,
or Icabod and Toad. Yeah, was the name of it.
Yeah. I remember seeing. I remember seeing like a Scooby-Doo episode, and yeah, so this is, it's a tale that goes back a long time. This is older than Paul Bunyan. This is older than Texas Pete or Pecos Pete. And, anything that you can think of. Kind of like one of those Mary Shelley Frankenstein stories, but something that's, natural born to America, brought to us by Scott Irving. So pretty cool. Those stories inspired him, and along with Icabod, and we got to enjoy it as a crucible Hammer horror Burton film. In this last movie that we're talking about for Halloween horrors, man. Before we all,
1980 TV movie with Jeff Goldblum called The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Really? I didn't know he did horror.
Made in '99, the same year this came out. And of course, it is a short animated film. Definitely a movie, a tale that's been around for a while. And I hate to say it, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow probably won't be the last movie.
No.
Someone will take on this idea again and make another film of it, and at some point in time. But I don't know if it'll be as good as this, because Burton's was pretty solid.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to follow. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine thinking like who could do this justice today and tell the tale in any different way. There's only so many ways you can tell the story, and I think he did it pretty perfect. So.
Yeah, he went off the path a little bit. I think Icabod leaves sooner rather than later, and Icabod leaves before the before the truth is found out. Because I think Brom, and they allude to part of the story because Brom dresses up and scares him away because he's also fighting for Christina's affection.
I mean, man,
I don't blame him. Yeah, man.
I'd be fighting over it too, man. Man, if that was me, you, man, I'd be like, dude, I'm going to scare you, man. I'm going to take you out with the horseman.
I like their little fight,
Head right off.
Right. That's funny. Their little fight at the beginning, and it's like the signs of disrespect at the time. Whenever he's like, "We have not heard your name, friend." He's like, "I have not spoke it," and he's like, "Oh, you motherfucker! Oh, basically, you haven't said your name. Fuck you." Oh man! And nowadays it's like it's even worse. You're like, man, I'm going to take your mom out for a nice seafood dinner and never call her again. Back then, he's like, I will not say my name. Good day. And they're like, oh, whoa, that's a burn. Oh man, yeah. Just how you thinking of it that way,
man. Well, we made it through another Halloween Horrors month this year. With a pretty solid set of films there with The Fly, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Scream, and Sleepy Hollow, man. And it's a pretty solid set.
Yeah, man.
Back next year with 4 or 5 more, depending on how many weeks we have. And we usually throw a horror film or two throughout the regular year sometimes, too. I mean, it's not just for October. So stay tuned to see what we bring to the table. So next week, we're going to lighten things up a little bit after all this dark, scary blood and guts and things. And as we start the kickoff for the final 8 weeks or so of the 2023 to the countdown to our annual Christmas Batman film. And we'll finish out the Lord of the Rings trilogy by the end of the year as well. But we're going to kick things off with something a little bit lighter next week as we're going to go total stoner comedy and probably – I mean, as much as I do appreciate Clerks and Mallrats, this is probably my favorite Kevin Smith film just because it's classic stoner, silly comedy, and that's what I like about it. And that is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Miramax is starting production this Friday on Blunt Man and Chronic.
Does it say who's playing us in the movie?
I'm sure it'll be Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. They put them in a bunch of movies.
Jay and Silent Bob are here.
Jay and Silent Bob movie?
There's a movie being made you two were the basis for.
What?
And these two guys from Jersey are on a mission.
We gotta stop that stupid movie from getting made. Come on, Silent Bob. We're going to Hollywood.
If they can manage to get there.
How come we ain't getting no rides?
Because you're doing it all wrong. Hey, all the hitches do this. It's the first rule in the book.
You follow the book, too?
I live my life by it. You live by the book?
Well, you picked us up, didn't you? I gotta. All right.
What are you doing?
Whoa! We keep our eye on the prize and let nothing distract us.
She's a machine, the kind you wanna ride, feels like a dream.
My friends and I are on a road trip.
Your friends, huh? Where they at? What the?
Watch the language, little boy. There's females present?
No!
Is Hollywood ready for Jay and Silent Bob?
Hey!
The real Jay and Silent Bob are breaking into show business.
I hate how fake Hollywood is.
The hard way.
We may very well be dealing with the two most dangerous men on the planet.
Fire a warning shot into his bulbous. Stand there and react. Don't say anything, especially you. All right, people.
That's pretty funny. This was a good idea, Lunchbox, and these outfits were totally incognito.
Hey, they need you on the set.
Another white boy in this movie? Damn!
Whoa! Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
I think George Lucas gonna sue somebody.
Yes.
Just
it's got Elijah Dushku in it.
Yeah, it's just a goofy, fun film. You don't have to think too hard. You sit back and you enjoy it. It's got a lot of great cameos. A really silly kind of goofy plot. but it's so much fun to watch. And looking forward to watching, discussing it, a little something chill, relax after all these dark films we did, and look back on the Kevin Smith, because we've covered Clerks 1 and 2, we've covered Dogma, we covered Mallrats, so we probably won't cover Chasing Amy because it's a little too heavy romantic.
It is. It's very much
we can skip that and go on to the next film. And that's Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So that'll be next week on the show. And anyone who ever listens to the podcast knows we're huge Kevin Smith fans. And so we got about once a year we try to cover one of his films. And this will be this next week on the show. So it'll be fun. But until then, the rubberradiopodcast.com for all your Rubber Radio needs. All links are there for our social media and all the wonderful apps you can find us on. And we appreciate it. And we thank you, as always, for listening. And I don't throw this out there very often, but if you happen to listen to us on podcast or iTunes, Apple Podcasts, stop for a second, leave us a little quick 5-star review. We'd appreciate it. Definitely. I think you can even leave reviews on Spotify now, too, and on iHeartRadio. I think all of them. So whatever you listen to us on, leave us a quick review because it helps us out, gets us into the algorithms, and we appreciate it. But that's all for this week, and that's all for the month of October. Be safe out there on Halloween this week. And until next week, this has been Mark.
This has been Matt.
Remember, as always, just go there
and do it.